Oh, there we go.
Oh, good numbers of attendees, Carla, and everyone coming in right now, up to over 50 at this time and still rising. This is like a stock price. You know, you hope it goes up and up and up, and that's what you want.
Mhm.
Carla, we are right at the top of the hour. Good number of attendees and participants with us today. So I'm all set. We've started the recording. I would say that the floor is yours, Carla.
Okay, thanks so much, Russ, for doing all that you always do for us. Hi, everyone. I'm Carla Lane. I'm the Vice President of the Higher Education Sector for FGDLA, and I'm your moderator for today's meeting. The FGDLA is a promotion, we're a nonprofit, we're a professional association formed to promote the development and application of distance learning in the federal government. We actively foster collaboration and understanding among those involved in leveraging technology and instructional media in support of the education and training needs of the federal government. Our membership is derived primarily from individuals employed by the agencies within the federal government, and we invite you to join with us in this exciting field. Our address is fgdla.us, and if you go there, you will find membership applications. If you're not already a member, please submit one. We'd really like to work with you. For upcoming events on November 15th, FGDLA will offer the second part of this workshop on the use of artificial intelligence for training and education. On December 6th, FGDLA will present awards that honor excellence in training. The deadline for submissions has passed. It was on September 15th, and winners have been told that what they have won, and we hope you'll join us for this special online event. We're so proud that Zoom is a valued sponsor of FGDLA and has been instrumental in helping us present the webinars. We'd like to thank Zoom for sponsoring today's webinar. They have been such an outstanding partner. Thank you, Russ. Would you like to say something about Zoom has been able to do for us?
Oh, I'm just thankful also, Carla, also to Zoom and Dr. Lansford and Johan, which may be with us. I haven't checked all the participants in the meeting as of yet, but we thank Zoom. We thank them who they are as people and as a company and these capabilities, many of which we're using today for this webinar for a large number of people with a large amount of features that we're going to demonstrate today. So we look forward to that. Again, we thank you, Zoom. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Russ. And we're also proud to announce again that Moodle has become one of our valued sponsors for FGDLA. They've also been instrumental in supporting our goals, and we're working with them to identify other things that we can do together. We are so honored to have such amazing and wonderful sponsors. Thank you. You both are the best. The topic of the workshop is artificial intelligence for training and education. Our presenters are Sandra Wagner, Associate Professor at the Defense Language Institute, Russ Colbert, who is VP of the FGDLA Corporate Sector, Dr. Jolly Holden, FGDLA's Executive Director and Associate Professor at the American Intercontinental University, Dr. Jennifer Verricchio, who chairs the Publications Committee and is a learning performance consultant with United Healthcare. And me, I'm a professor at Capella University in instructional design and performance improvement. I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items about the AI workshop. FGDLA will provide a certificate, a badge, and a letter for your HR folder. To qualify, just attend parts 1 and 2 of the workshop. Log-ons and log-offs will be tracked, and we hope you will find it so worthwhile that you wouldn't even think of multitasking. Once the sessions are over, hours will be tabulated and the certificate, badge, and letter will be sent to you. The second workshop is on November 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Please put it in your calendar. If you have any questions about this, please contact me. It's Carla Lane at AOL.com, and no laughing at my old AOL address. And now, Sandy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carla, and welcome everybody. And let's get started with our session. I'll be introducing our speakers. I'll be jumping in and out throughout different portions of the webinar. So as we look into AI for training and education part 1, we have a lot of information to share. And I always like to start off with kind of getting everybody speaking the same language, because as you know, when we get new technologies, new languages are formed and new acronyms that make us all crazy. And it's good to know what we're all, speaking about when we say things like, I'm hallucinating, and we know it has nothing to do with legalizing drugs and the effects of that. So with that said,
Are
let's
you
look
sure
at
about that, Sandy? Are you sure? You better be.
well, I know. Well, for me at least. Okay, growing up in that, late 60s era when all the university campuses were just going crazy. Anyways, most of what you'll see during the presentation also, we have used AI and AI enhanced tools. And if you look at that image, in my mind, when I think of AI, and I don't know if that's the image you get, minus that hand that is usually a robot hand, to me, it's a constellation of shifting and movement. And even this morning, something popped up, and it's just changing and morphing and providing some very interesting, beneficial, and even some concerns as we move forward. So let's take a look first at some of the acronyms that are associated with AI. But these are not acronyms. This is our esteemed panel that Carla already introduced, and with the addition of Dr. Lance Ford. So I apologize for his image not being there, but I'll do better next time, I promise. Thank you. So let's first look at our agenda. We're first going to be talking about, are we speaking the same language? I'm going to introduce you to some acronyms and terms that you will be hearing our other presenters using as we progress through the webinar. Why is AI important? The age-old question. And I'm not going to say any more about it. I'm going to let Carla delve into that. Successful outcomes, something that I have been really digging into, is prompt engineering, which you actually have been doing it a long time with our search engines. Zooming in on AI, and I'll let you figure out what that's all about. AI in the ADDIE model. So even with instructional design and our field of distance learning, distributed learning, AI plays a big role even in the way that we're constructing our learning environments. And then we're going to talk about current policies. And please feel free to chime in the chat box, and especially at the end, where policies are everywhere or they're not everywhere, and it's a way for us to move forward. So I am going to begin with speaking the same language, acronyms and terms.
And Sandy, may I
Yes.
add to that? You
Yes,
just
Russ.
indicated that, for the attendees, you can
Yes.
easily use the chat feature, but you also can send a message in chat if you want to speak, or even if you desire to be promoted to a panelist so that you can show your video as well. So all of those things are capable within this webinar format.
Okay, thanks, Russ. I'm glad that I provided that segue for you. So excuse me. Sorry, I'm in my office and life goes on. So if you could take a look at the word cloud I created, and this is a word cloud app. And just like all these other programs where we've got our chatbots now and going into all the search engines that seem to be incorporating chatbots along with their search, this is a word cloud using AI. So if you look, are there any that are familiar to you that you could enlighten us with? You can just type what you think they mean in the chat. I'll give you a couple minutes, and I promise to give you all the answers. First one, obviously, AI. I'm assuming you all know that's artificial intelligence. Any there? Some of them are a little more obscure.
Yeah, they're coming in fast, Sandy.
Oh, good. RL, real life. Okay, L, yes, large language models, definitely very important. Generative adversary network. Oh my goodness, I can see we've got a lot of very highly proficient AI users. NLP, natural language. DL, digital learning. Okay. I think this is just kind of like the English language. There's context for everything, right? Distributed learning, DL, definitely. Deep learning. Okay. So, of deep learning, distributed learning, and digital learning, which one fits better in the context of AI? Deep, yeah. Yeah, deep learning, definitely. The others are perfectly fine. I think we're all going a little crazy now, having to adjust our context. So let's take a look at the answers to some of these. And I hope you're going to have a couple of aha moments. Oh, there you go. So sorry for the smallness of that. I think is it readable to everybody? We good? So yeah, ML machine learning, MLOPS machine learning operation. Thank you for the thumbs up. That always makes me feel good that everything's working. We have GAN. And actually what was interesting when I looked at GAN, I saw the adversarial network, but that's not really, it's not adversarial. It's something that kind of works in conjunction. Natural language processing, reinforcement learning, deep learning. Are there any aha moments here for anybody? I had a lot when I was researching these because I had not put them into my lexicon of acronyms for AI. But what I found interesting was when you look at the bottom, you have artificial general intelligence, narrow intelligence, super intelligence, intelligence of things. So I think this is going to keep expanding. But one quick question, and I found this in my travels with AI, so to speak, on the internet. Are Siri and Alexa forms of artificial intelligence? Are they powered by generative AI? Anybody have any idea about Siri and Alexa? Okay, well, I'm not gonna tax your brains too much. Yeah, we could ask GPT. Yes. Okay, that's a great question, Stephen, and I'm going to leave that because this is kind of a little context building, foreshadowing, because we are going to be addressing that later on. So before I just give you a definition, I'm going to let Jenny will put that in wonderful context for you too, and we will address that. Yes, they both are, and I would put them in artificial narrow intelligence because they do not do what our chatbots do now. That they're not as sophisticated. So let's go on to some terms now. So these are little quizzes for you to just kind of see artificial intelligence. Which definition do you think is okay? You can just type A, B, C, or D. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, Erica, I think we can show. Yeah, there you go. So yes, it's the machine's ability to perform the cognitive functions. That's key word there. We usually associate with human minds. And of course, it gets more granular as we, dig deeper. But yes, thank you. Let's go on to the next one. Hallucination. And no, Russ, I'm not hallucinating. But I did get some hallucinations on something I did the other day. It was pretty interesting. Yeah, it's kind of the same, only AI and yeah, we don't need drugs. We can just rely on the chatbots. So yeah, go ahead. It's C. Okay, it's the tendency to generate erroneous or unrealistic information. So that leads us to something else we will talk about when we look at some of the concerns regarding the use of artificial intelligence, where the teachers will never be replaced. There's a purpose for AI, and I'm a strong believer, and I'm not going to say anything more. So, and a chatbot is what? Okay, yeah, it's D, all of the above. Yeah, so all these things relate to chatbot bots that are AI powered. Okay, thank you.
Even
So,
ordering a pizza. I ordered a
yeah,
pizza at Domino's and I talked to a chatbot to get a pepperoni pizza. Sandy?
yeah,
Yeah,
was it, was your order correct?
it was. It was perfect.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was too much money, but the order was perfect.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it does have the ability to hallucinate, and we have to be very careful. Although I will say, coming from the Defense Language Institute, where we're teaching, oh my goodness, a myriad of languages, again, linked to what's going on in the world, unfortunately. Um, and when we send our students there for language practice, it has some amazing conversations in a multitude of target languages. I've had French conversations, and most of the time I would say all the time, it even corrected me on something. I forgot my accent aigu when I was typing, so it called me out. Anyways, these are just some other terms that are important, I think, especially for the purposes of our webinar. When we talk about algorithm, set of rules that a machine can follow, general AI, and this is something, this is not generative, it's general. It can do any intellectual task that can be done by any human being. Natural language processing, some of it you're very familiar with, but I think it's always good. It's kind of like that affirmation, okay, which is the machine's ability to perform conversational tasks. And we have generative AI, which Jenny will get into in a little bit. And then I believe, and that's it for my common terms. And slide 14 again, when you get a chance, can we go back to that real quickly? Thank you. Yeah, did you have a question, Kalima? Yeah, so this is all of the descriptors for chatbot and probably more. Okay, simulate human conversation, as you've seen if you go on right now to Bard, and there is one called, I believe it's Yes. It shows the search engine query results, and then it shows the chatbot query results. Oh, sure, of course, it's our pleasure. Okay, so let's move on, and I'm going to now turn the floor over back to you, Carla.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mhm.
So Erica is going to be running some slides for me. Erica and I work together a lot on things. So what I'm going to be talking about is, why is AI important? The next slide. So we're going to go over a few things that make AI important to us. It has many abilities and can do many things well, but on other things, maybe not so much. There's a lot of misinformation about AI. Next slide. AI is based on large language models. You all seem to know that title, and use our natural language as an interface. It can respond to prompts, paraphrase, or use idioms, and it understands them. It can do this in text or media and in multiple languages. Next slide. Our interest today is training and education. For learning, the destination is the journey. Most of the time, we're asking learners to create something that shows what they have learned. We can call these proxies, but they are reports, papers, essays, tests that are used to learn how to do something. These papers seem to be the goal, but they are the evidence of learning. The goal of learning is being able to apply the content, to retrieve it when you need to, and apply it effectively. If that is our real purpose, then AI does not necessarily support that, at least not yet. On the next slide, oh, you've already got it up, thanks. With good prompts, AI can produce specific outcomes, but if you want to learn how to do that and ask AI to do the work for you, you have short-circuited that process. You need to do the work to learn how to do the task. The work should be based on your thoughts and not on what AI has chosen for you. So it takes time. Next slide. It does take time to learn how to create and present our thoughts, and it takes time to learn how to do it well. The main point to take away from this is that anything that short circuits learning undercuts learning. In the same way that we all know that plagiarism undercuts learning, AI can also do the same thing. What is the AI opportunity for training and education? The real gift is the ability to communicate well with machines and natural language. This has crept into our lives. It's chatbots, speech recognition, closed captioning, Siri and Alexa, as aforementioned, are all examples of AI at work. AI has taken us out of using forced choice or highly restricted languages. All of that supports various types of learning, but, and this is a big caveat, a big but, it's the ELIZA effect. So maybe you haven't heard about this before. This effect occurs when someone attributes human intelligence or thought processes or emotions to an AI system and overestimates the system's overall intelligence. It makes AI feel personable, or maybe even feel like chatting with a real person, like Russ and trying to order pepperoni pizza. For example, how many times have you wanted to thank Siri or Alexa for doing something for you? I find myself doing that periodically as it's kept into my, I don't know why I do it. It's really stupid. But anyway, the result is an unwarranted assumption about AI. The assumption is that there is some real intelligence there, and it isn't. Many AI projects are going to help us support learners and learning through interaction. But the ELIZA effect, you want to go to the next slide? And the one after that. So the ELIZA effect is going to kick in. It won't be seen as just processing. Go to the next slide now. And the one after that. Should have given you a script, Erica. I'm sorry. So AI is just manipulating our symbols and giving us back another set of symbols that are seen as a good interaction. Dr. Chris Deedy of Harvard says this isn't much more than a digital parrot. They don't understand what they hear, but they can mimic it. We want to think the parrot is smart or that it has some intelligence, but it's not really intelligence. Many of you know Chris, Dr. Deedy. We work together at the U.S. Department of Education. He's also the human intelligence that coined the phrase distributed learning, which many of you may now know as advanced distributed learning. We did that when we were working on the development of Scorum years ago. Next slide. So to take this a step further, we should consider LLM generative AI like a brain without a mind. Look at the things it does not have. It's not conscious, it has no senses, experience, it doesn't have a body, doesn't have family, friends, culture, religion, or ethics. And the lack of ethics may be why it invents references that don't exist. So it tends to lie to us at times. And that's one of the reasons we have to be careful with it. While its database is extensive, it cannot reach out to learners because it's never been a human learner. So it doesn't have that particular experience. Next slide. So remember that large language models are trained in material from the web that are uncurated. That includes the good, the bad, and the really ugly biases and misconceptions. Material is uncited as it uses the intellectual property of others. I mean, it's got 3 of my books in it, a bunch of my papers, but I don't have any citations or references credited to me when it spits something back out to anybody looking for it. So this is a very troubling aspect, and one of the reasons that the Writers Guild held out for AI considerations in their new contract. We talk about AI hallucinating because it invents things on its own that are false. If you know the subject matter, you can probably use AI effectively. If you're a novice, beware and just check other trusted resources to verify what the prompts are bringing to you. That's the best way to work with AI right now. Unfortunately, many students aren't doing that. And so most universities have come up with policies about using AI for their students' work. Also, K-12 districts have also started doing that. As with many new concepts and innovations, all our AI is flawed. You go to the next slide, Erica. What we have to do is consider AI's strengths as well as its limitations, and then decide how our organizations can use it. How do we use it to prepare people for work, for upskilling and reskilling? Projections about how fast portions of jobs will change over the next years is significant. They've changed significantly in the past few months. This will lead to major reskilling efforts, and many of you will be responsible for those reskilling efforts. It will affect most forms of work, and it will affect some forms of work much faster than others. Next slide. So a way to think about this is that, for you Star Trekkers out there, it's the use of AI will lead to intelligence augmentation, IA, and rather than AI. This is where a human and AI effectively work together on tasks. An example from Star Trek is Captain Picard and Data, the android with artificial intelligence. Picard uses data for reckoning, which is predictive calculation. Once data gives him this, Picard uses human judgment to make decisions. That is intelligence augmentation, AI and IIA working together. Next slide. So this is a table, just a very quick comparison between reckoning and judgment. With reckoning, calculated prediction is used to work through potential solutions based on the facts Then judgment is used by workers to apply the person's preferences and other personal considerations to identify a medical solution. So many of us are working in the medical field, but this is just an example of how it might work and something that's pretty open. Next slide. So, but why is that important? It changes the nature of work when we use AI and IA together. It changes the division of labor between people and machines and uses the best of both. If you don't remember anything else from this webinar today, that's the most important statement. IA and AI are going to change the way we work. We don't know yet how it will change it, but it is changing us and it's happening very quickly. Right now, AI is short on judgment. And you can say that about a lot of people too, but we probably have a better way of getting to the answer that is right. The next slide. So we need to look at jobs to determine which part of a job is better based on the reckoning that AI can provide. The advantage, the real opportunity here is that it gives humans much more for the important job of exercising judgment, gives us more time for exercising judgment. For example, the machine can assist instructors by doing some part of the job to support students, and that frees instructors to personalize learning for students based on their judgment of what students need. Next slide. Intelligence augmentation, IA, happens if we upskill and change the way we view our work. If we don't do that, we're de-skilling. AI is currently being used by training and education to develop reckoning skills in people. What we actually need to do is teach judgment to people as we learn to use AI effectively.
Good point.
Next slide. It's a major point, Russ. I mean, that's why this little segment is so important, I think, because it really gets at why we're doing what we're doing and how we need to change how we're using AI right away. We can't wait. We can't wait until everybody becomes so dependent upon it that, we've essentially weaponized stupidity. We just can't do that. The focus then is knowing on what AI can and cannot do and staying up on improvements. We need to be equally smart about IA, intelligence augmentation. If we aren't, we'll just recreate the wheel again, patch up our old industrial age model of education, and move on. It's a good time right now to consider new teaching and learning models based on AI and IA. We need to see the partnerships so that we can deal with the complexities we face now and how fast this will change our future. And it will be fast. Thanks for listening. Sandy, back to you.
Sandy, we don't have your microphone.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute just in case there were noises. Okay. There one I was saying there's an anecdote I thought about is, Carla, as you were speaking about a hallucination, and a lot of what I did was I wanted to see what ChatGPT and Bard were going to give me and some of the information I needed, and then put some of it into my own words, some of it I quoted them. And when I did hallucination without context, and this is getting into this part about prompt engineering, it talked about people, here we go, Russ, on LSD trips and back, when drugs were, coming into being, and people would be hallucinating and just in another world. And then I came back with the prompt and I said, thank you. And I said, thank you. Like, we're all trying to get, your welcomes back from our AI. And I said, could you please put it in the context of AI? What I've noticed, one of the benefits is that AI, when you're using these chatbots, that you don't need to repeat previously. It kind of has an intuitive sense when you're adding more detail. And when I said, please put it into the context of AI, it apologized to me. I'm so sorry, I didn't understand you. And it came back with hallucination in that definition. And I went, wow. But I do believe in, what you were telling us, that there's got to be another explanation too in the way the algorithms are working, but just something more to ponder. So, which leads me to, how do we get successful outcomes when we're utilizing chatbots over search engines now, even the word cloud I created, things like that. And it all boils down to something we've been doing or hopefully have had some training on, even with our search engines. You have to hone in on the keywords. If you don't, I'm talking search engines now. Sorry, let me backtrack. If you're not picking up in the keywords that have been metadata tagged in those on websites, things like that, you won't get results. And now we've got these large language models and natural language processing. So that theory has now morphed into a new kind of query where we need to be very specific. And that's where prompt engineering comes in. There's someone who from Harvard came out with refuting prompt engineering and saying it should be problem-based queries. To me, it's all how you frame it. Problem-based means you really hone in on a specific issue. And to me, it's a deeper level of prompt engineering. So at its surface, notice it doesn't say creation. We're talking about engineering it. It's a little bit more refined. So let's go on to the next slide so you can see what I'm talking about.
I just saw some comments though in the chat that
Oh,
maybe we
sure.
should address. So I see Christopher's
Yes.
comment about is AI mature enough to educate students on how to incorporate it into the learning, or are we spending time that we should be focused on, right? I think it's a great comment.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Erica. I'm glad. I think we should be really open here, and thank you for stopping me. Yeah, I have comments on that, Christopher. Can AI educate the students how to incorporate it? I think that's where we need to come in and teach those. It's a skill, which is where prompt engineering comes in. I can tell you from my experience with my we have some very advanced Russian students here, and it's for translating, interpreting, and I'm doing high levels of English language because some of them are heritage speakers, and they were innovative enough to actually go to ChatGPT, and we had a grammar focus. I don't remember the grammatical structure specifically, but they wanted more practice other than what I gave them. And they said, please create activities for me to role play using this grammatical structure. And it came back with some amazing results. So yes, but I still think that we have an opportunity to also advise them on the skills and ways to do prompt engineering so that they can benefit more from it. So I hope that makes sense. And capitalizing earlier reference.
Sandy,
Yes.
and we had an important question from Jay Cooper, and it wasn't a question. It was kind of a long but a very interesting item, and it was in Q&A from Jay Cooper. Could I ask the panel members to take a look at that in Q&A from Jay Cooper and provide any comments? He's talking about his government network. This may be a question for Erica or you, Sandy, or
I'm not seeing it. How far down is it?
It's in Q&A, question and answers.
Not the chat.
Not the chat.
Oh, okay. I see where you're talking about. Okay. Prove the use of chat, but when I requested the use of it, my request was denied.
So,
Erica, do you want to address that first?
So I know on our for the Marine Corps our EDU network, so for the Marine Corps University, it is authorized. I don't know, maybe I actually haven't played around to see if our MarineNet Enterprise network has authorized it or not. So I can't speak to that, but I do know for our EDU network, it has been authorized. I don't know where the restrictions lie with that, or why it would be their purpose behind blocking. I'm not sure what network you're running off of either. That might make a difference.
Yeah, I think Jay wants
sure
access. Russ,
I'm
yeah,
sure.
Jay, I can give you the Army perspective right now at DLI. Again, we're on a .edu network, and we did come out with a policy, actually not really a policy, a memorandum for record, and I'm going to share excerpts of that. So basically, they stressed responsible use and no PII, and our cybersecurity has allowed that. So, and again, we do ask the teachers to please monitor, and if they do see anything that, they advise the students. But so far, it's worked out pretty well, and they approve the use of it, but again, responsibly and judiciously. I'm sure if something was detected, they would probably shut us down also. But so far, we do have access.
Excellent,
Right.
Sandy. And it looks like Susan also is indicating Department of Defense,
Mhm.
Education, Department of Defense looks like she says, okayed. I'm assuming that's okay for use.
Right. Yeah. Here, Jay, what you work for Customs and Border Protection. Yeah. And I think it's going to depend on your organization also.
Yeah.
There are a lot of programs that are blocked for us that they put restrictions on. I can't, well, no downloads. I mean, there's a litany of things. So what I like to tell everybody, and I do a lot of teacher training and for technology, is to look at the use of AI programs like you would any other technology and use it for specific purposes. And again, responsible keeps coming up, that responsible usage. And until I think we get more specific guidance and even restrictions, it's I hate to say this, it's fair game, but you just do the best you can to make sure that people are acting responsibly.
Yeah, and I look reading Stephen's response there too, because you're right. Every time we use AI, we are educating AI. So if we're educating AI in general to people outside of the government, there could be concerns with that. Absolutely. And that goes back to your point, Sandy, of using it responsibly.
Right, right. And again, we were only on a .mil network when I first started working here, and the restrictions were very well. What you're talking about, it was very restrictive. So we had to go to a .edu because we're granting associates and now bachelor's degrees in the languages that our students graduate from, and then of course they go on to new assignments. So they needed to give us access because of the way we instruct. We needed to be able to get authentic material. So a lot of those networks were totally restricted by the .mil. So any more? Thank you, Russ. Thank you for
Of course,
interrupting.
Sandy.
And
Of
yeah,
course.
and Carla, I think there was a couple there for you in the chat. If you want to grab those now, might be a good time before I move on.
Yeah, I just did. They're kind of long. But one of the questions is, does AI change and does IA change? And yes, they would all change. Just as you said, AI is constantly learning, and we have to be learning along with it. We have to keep up with it and actually stay ahead of it by using our own judgment. So yes, things would change based upon a culture, the organization, the policies in place, and as well as the person who is actually doing the work with AI.
Well, and if I may add, even this morning, I come in and I'm doing a lot of research for us and presenting a lot here at DLI, so we're more enlightened. And what popped up was Claude, which is the chatbot from Anthropic, and they actually have an AI constitution with a mission to align a language model with public impact and creating a more helpful, honest, and harmless experience. So I think there are a lot of initiatives there, and the jury's still out. Will it be successful? Will they need to take it down? I mean, I think they took Bing Chat down in the beginning because it was insulting people, and and then they go in, and look at the refinement. So just so you know, it's constantly evolving, and I think it's just staying on top of it and using it so that it beneficially and responsibly meets your needs in whatever organization you happen to be involved in. Yes, Melissa, there is a level of fear and privacy for some of the programs, definitely. I think initially it was copyright issues, but we don't really deal with copyright issues for our needs. Most universities do. So again, I think you need to look at it for your specific objectives and needs and then decide what is allowable that's not going to compromise the integrity of your programs. So anything else? Should I move on? Okay, Erica, we good? Okay, thank you. So these are just, and if you notice, I cited chatopenai.com because we also have a policy. We publish 2 journals, which allows our instructors to have a voice for, their professional publications. And, excuse me. And that's why I use that, because it's part of the requirement if they're going to use ChatGPT for research or anything. We want them to know, but that we do have a policy that is saying you may not use ChatGPT to write your papers. Certainly get ideas. Anyway, so this would relate prompt engineering. This is a skill. Again, some of our students may be doing it inherently. I think it's something that we need to address, just like we train people how to develop in learning management systems. So when you're using AI models to accomplish various tasks, from text generation and language translation to data analysis and problem solving, how do you get the best results? And if you look at the second paragraph, harness the power of AI effectively. So I posted a couple of examples on the next slide, and from actually a chatbot, and I was playing around with DAL-E, which is part of OpenAI. So I decided, well, I'll just see what they say about prompt engineering. So my prompt is at the bottom, and you can see what is prompt engineering. It gives me examples. This I find very beneficial in the systems that have been more sophisticatedly developed, that you always get a little bit more. Sometimes you get qualifiers, especially now they're saying we cannot verify our sources. We don't know that this was, Carla Lane's research, but please make sure that you access and cite the appropriate sources. So it is saying that they're not, actually able to validate where those sources came from. And then if you look at the next slide, at my next prompt, I adjusted it for specificity, give examples of a more complex prompt. So while it gave me kind of a generic, now I'm getting more specific. So here's for text generation, write a short story. For translation, these are some prompts I might want to use so that I get more information, and then you can keep digging deeper, deeper, deeper. So if anyone is interested, Coursera has a course for the professor is from Vanderbilt University, and it is on prompt engineering. And his example that he starts out with is he asks for a menu as he's traveling to a country where he's not familiar with the cuisine, to develop out what are the foods this person can eat, and he's gluten-free. Well, it came back with this amazing menu. I think it was somewhere in the South Pacific, but it was more the Asian inspired cuisine. And then he thought, well, I don't want to get fat while I'm there or gain weight. So can you tell me what should I eat so I stay under 2,000 calories a day? And then it actually broke it down more. So that kind of an example there. So again, keep breaking it down. Luckily, we don't have to match metadata tag for tag, but we have to be more specific, just like I did with hallucination. And I said, please put it in the AI context. Okay, next example. So this was my image creation using DALL-E. When I have to brand when I create. That's just my own personal thing, and contextualize. And so this was what I asked for. I asked for an image for generative AI, and it gave me that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's pretty good. But then I thought, I wanted something more universal and getting up to the constellation. So I did AI in the universe. That's fine. And then the dark background, I wanted white. So next slide, please, Erica. So I asked for a colorful galaxy. And then I went, oh my goodness, I forgot to say white background. So you can see my final colorful galaxy in a globe with a white background, and that's what it generated. So again, that's, your specificity is very important. And again, you know what you're searching for, and you know when you want to get more granular with that. So just, something to think about. Prompt engineering, if you were doing it more according to a problem solving viewpoint, you could just come up with a problem. How do we increase irrigation in the desert? Maybe even parse it down more. Or you just tell it, I need to solve this problem. Here's the problem, and see what it generates. So you are in control of getting that information and knowing, getting into the specifics. So any questions so far? Oh, I just see the Coursera courses through Vanderbilt. You just go on Coursera and look up prompt engineering, and it will give you that. Okay, shall we move on to our next panel member? And Russ, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can zoom in along with Dr. Ford.
Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. So for everyone in the audience, Dr. Lansford and myself have been friends for many, many years. And he's probably one of the most respectful people that I know in the industry for being able to develop features, to understand education and training, and translate that to various companies. He and I have worked together at Cisco and at Zoom, and for me also at Polycom for a number of years. But anyway, Lance has done more than practically anyone at having companies, convincing them that we need this and this and this and this. So AI is one of those thises that he has influenced within his company now as the Zoom guru for education and training in all forms, all around the globe. So Lance is going to take us through, believe it or not, artificial intelligence. And he's not going to just talk about it or show a few slides, yes, but he's also going to talk about the real reality uses, starting with closed captioning, which uses AI, which prevents people from hiring and spending money and being cumbersome to transmit to people. Helen, you're with us today from GSA. You'll be happy to know that we can blink our eye into English to English closed captioning and open captioning. We can blink our eye twice and have multiple languages active. Someone speaking in one language going to another, and our systems with a single click or a dual click, we can have notes taken for sales, for hospitalization care, for health care, for education, and so on. And the latest thing that I'm sure Lance will talk about is companion AI, which I used yesterday for a 2-hour meeting, and it gave me back notes, which I couldn't even hardly believe that it could be so efficient and so time saving for me. So Lance, did I get those kind of 4 topics just about right?
No, absolutely, Russ. You're way too kind on your introduction of me, but other than that, you were bang on. So the first question that I always get when we go down this road of AI is data privacy. All right. So I want to make no bones about it. In the chat right this second to all of you all, there is Zoom's data privacy on AI. It will tell you exactly which tools we're using, how we're using them, and everything else that you need to know from a Zoom perspective. So like I said, before we even broach this topic, I like to be proactive in that process as opposed to reactive. Secondarily to that, Dr. Lane, thank you for mentioning Eliza. I really appreciate that as a music teacher, because you all know where that reference came from, right? That's Eliza from My Fair Lady, who parroted and was then able to fit into society better as her companion wanted her to. So this whole idea of parroting and being responsible in that process is really what Zoom is focusing on, trying to get you what you need. And to that end, right this second, Russ mentioned the ability to close caption things. everybody just go down to the very bottom where the little toolbar is. You should have a CC button down there. Now, you don't have translation turned on. I'm going to demonstrate it for you here momentarily. But the CC button, if you'll hit that, you should be able to see a live transcript of everything that's going on right this second in the meeting. And if you click the little up arrow, thank you for those thumbs up. If you click the little up arrow next to CC right this second, you can also hit a full transcript of everything that's happened since you started closed caption. Okay. You see at the very bottom of that, it is savable. And at the very top of that, it is searchable. Now, these really play an interesting role inside the AI from a Zoom meeting. You might not think about it, but as you explore what AI can do now as a Zoom AI companion, let's say that the AI was in the meeting from the get-go, and that AI was seeing all the transcript, seeing what all the important things were, and you came 5 minutes late to the meeting. You'd have the ability to ask the AI via chat, what did I miss? Was anything addressed to me as something I need to do? Hang on 1 second, Jay, I'm coming to you, right? So in that flow, from an AI perspective, we just give it to you, and then Jay, I'll get your question. I'm going to fire off a new Zoom meeting since today's meeting does not have the AI companion in it. You guys are really familiar with this whole process, right? And right down here at the bottom of a new Zoom meeting, right there, it says AI companion. I'm clicking on it. Now, again, Zoom wants to give you control of how these tools are used. So if you're the host of a meeting, AI can be included. It can be turned on. There's no additional cost for this. That was announced week before last at Zoomtopia. Then the person who's hosting the meeting can say, who gets to ask the questions to AI, right? And for some classes that I teach, and I got about 60 students right this second in one of my online classes, I don't want them necessarily asking, what did I miss? I'd rather than be on time. So we want them to be able to ask questions, but I don't want them to ask before they got here. So all participants only from when they join. All participants are only hosts. And as a part of that, you get a pop-up that basically lets you know that that's happening. And here are some of the things that I mentioned. Catch me up on what I've been missing. Was my name mentioned? Were there any action items? So this is a proactive use of AI during Zoom meetings. To Russ's point, we can have a summary of that entire experience post-meeting where AI says these were the important things that happened from the AI perspective. Here are the bullets. Here are the action items. Oh, and by the way, if you made a recording of this, why don't you let us chapter it and index it based on these same items? So AI does that as well in the Zoom meetings now. All right, Jay, I sat there and rambled on and on and on. You probably lost your question at this point, but what is the question? I saw your hand come up. Am I missing it in chat somewhere? Or can we bring him live? Disregard webinar version of a butt dial. Got it. No problem, buddy. It's sort of like the, oops, I got on the raise the hand button. I'm just glad you're mashing the buttons. I had a group from a community college in Louisiana this morning, and the lady's basic response was, can I mash all these buttons? I said, please mash every button. That's what this is all about, because it should be an experience, not a lecture, Dr. Ford. So, Russ, you're going to have to keep me straight on time because you know I can talk for hours about this. I'm looking for any questions over on the side. Am I missing anything, Russ? Anywhere?
Well, Lance, what about, can you really speak in English and have someone that cannot speak English? For example, if you're English and I'm Spanish, is it smart enough to know the difference between the two languages?
That is a great question, my friend. So as you're listening to me, you can obviously see that I can barely speak English very well. So here's the way it works. All right. I'm going to hit show captions first and foremost. And because you mentioned Spanish, we'll go down and we'll choose Spanish from this particular list. Let's scroll on down right there. So I'm going to click the enable translation, hit save. Closed caption is the first thing that comes on. And that closed caption then turns everything I'm saying to Spanish in real time. Now, from an education perspective, what's the real purpose of this? If we think about Zoom as an individual tool, it shouldn't matter if I'm physically in the room or outside the room. I get my phone out. I join via Zoom. Now I'm not going to join with the audio, obviously, or we'll get feedback back, right? So we're not going to do that, okay? But if they will join the Zoom experience minus their audio, then each participant, in room, out of room, speaking multiple languages, can get the language they need individually. Now, can I put that up front on the Zoom room and show one language to everyone? Well, of course, that goes without saying. But the power here is that we're using the technology and the AI to truly individualize the learning experience with nothing else but the AI making this happen. No one is off camera typing these things while I'm speaking them. Russ, that's a part of the power of the Zoom AI inside.
It's amazing, Lance. It's amazing. What about the accuracy? Is it pretty close to 100% accurate?
We're pushing on the 90s, upper mid 90s. I would never say anything is going to be as accurate as somebody doing this. However, the time to task of taking it here, transposing it here, and spewing it back to you is greatly lagged, as you saw that happening in near real time.
Well, Lance, let me tell you this. You know, when I was at Zoom for my 3 years there, which I loved so much, two of my favorite customers, get a load of this, United Nations and World Health Organization. Both of them use this features and functionality every single day, and it was so amazing for them. And Sandy at Defense Language Institute, this might be something that you can use even for, you know, even if it's just for training. I am positive if United Nations right now can be using this, you might be able to also.
Definitely. Yes, I think this is something that certainly worth looking into. And it's just sometimes Zoom is blocked. Sorry. Well, no, you know, so we're, you know, sometimes we're told which platforms to use, but we
Yes.
do still, well, when we have to go train, you know, off base, many of the bases are using Zoom. So certainly it's got its advantages, and I can promote that. Sure. Recommend.
I will say this, as we explore how AI is touching each portion of the portfolio from Zoom, this is one of the big ones. Another big one is that whole front end. When you come to a website, chatbots have been mentioned multiple times. Alexa's been mentioned. Siri's been mentioned. From a Zoom perspective, everything should have at least an opportunity to be omni-channel. And what do I mean by that? Well, I may start like this with a bot, but then I might want to escalate to something like this, which then might necessitate something like this to truly get the point across. And I want to be able to ebb and flow between each one of those. Having AI kind of bring you in and escalate you to the IA experience. Again, Dr. Lane, thank you for bringing that up. Escalate to the IA experience, where I got to be honest on the nuance question for Japanese. I don't know the answer to that. I know part of that has to do with IA instead of AI, right? Because it's the subtleties that maybe the parrot does not quite have down yet as it would need.
Lance, can I jump in there real quick, if you don't mind? So, you know, what we've done with that is we've tested out, you know, to me, a lot of this is trial and error too, to see what we're getting back. So with Japanese, I'm going to grab one of our instructors and have them do a test on it. And that's the only way I can give you. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not, yeah. And then if it's not there, it's almost like, how did Google Translate get to be as accurate as it is? Because it was human input correcting and modifying. So, you know, Spanish, French, I've done, and it seems pretty accurate, but sometimes you just have to test it out yourself and hope it gets better. If it's not, or you don't use it. I think that's
that's a great call out. That is exactly, Sandy, I'm with you 100%.
but thanks for
one of the interesting things that I see happening here is even our own teams internally are using a lot of AI to kind of match who Zoom is and their personal intelligence on the Zoom platform with the needs of customers, by taking maybe a strategic plan or something like that and asking AI to do what it right now in my mind does best, which is really summarize content for me quickly and allow me to create synergies between multiple silos of content relatively quickly and cross-pollinate that. So that's one of the ways that I'm seeing it used a lot. Now, to point earlier, there has to be some human intelligence involved to know the subtle nuances of what Zoom is and what Zoom does, because it can get started. But if I can take literally your strategic plan and compare it with what Zoom can do and give me some cross-pollination points to work with you and help you forward, those are really some of the amazing benefits I'm seeing. I guess, Russ, one last thing before I get out of y'all's hair here. A tool that you may or may not be familiar with from Zoom is our new pervasive whiteboard. It doesn't just live during a live session, it lives before, lives after. People can come in using it in a lot of different ways. AI is now built into this to help us brainstorm. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the closed caption for a split second so we can hide those. All right. Down here on the left-hand side, our AI companion inside the whiteboard world will actually allow us to ask it questions and have it start the brainstorm process. So what are some of the benefits of Zoom in education? All right. Have no idea what's going to come up with. We asked it to generate sticky notes. We could have asked it to generate a flow chart. We could have asked it to generate 3 or 4 different formats of material, but here's what it's come up with, right? Now, I can always add more. I can refine those results and make those things the starting point for a larger conversation for my learners. So what I typically will do here, each one of these is its own artifact. I'll say, okay, guys, I need group 1 to take this information, and I want you to outline for me how this leans into this and how this flows into here. Go. And all of these experiences are really about individualizing the learning process. I know I keep saying that, but in an age of I can look it up when I want to, Dr. Ford, the idea that engagement is driven from individual contribution and that contribution is shaped by your needs and processes, that's the great hope of a one-to-one. I'm living in a K-12. That's the playground. That's the music classroom. Okay. When we rolled out one-to-ones about a decade ago, it was drill and kill. Keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, and you'll finally get the right answers, right? That is no longer where we are with teaching and learning. And I'm preaching to the choir here. I know that. Okay. But when we get into AI, that takes it to a whole nother level of individualized and differentiated learning. So, Russ,
yeah, amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm speechless because I'm just carefully listening, Lance, so much. Lance, I've got one burning question. It's from Christopher. Christopher indicates that he is hearing impaired, and American Sign Language is one of his major tools of communicating with people. Yes. Why can you not speak in English and have AI translate or create American Sign Language so Christopher can sit here and listen or watch what you're saying?
Christopher, the intermediate step is where Zoom is today. And that intermediate step is allowing a real translator to become a floating, resizable, independent window inside a Zoom experience, giving you that ASL. Because so many times in the past, people are trying to bring in ASL translation, and they get lost in the gallery. They get lost somewhere off screen. They're not generating any audio from their signing, so they're rotating to screen 2, right? Zoom is trying to deal with that proactively, first and foremost, by giving that to you front and center, provided we have ASL translation.
But that's what he's actually asking, Lance. What he wants to know is that if he is signing an ASL, will Zoom translate that into English for those of us who are hearing?
Not yet.
But that's what would really be the useful
session today. But I'll just say not yet.
But that would be a wonderful thing.
Put some pressure on the engineering team, Lance.
Yeah, go get them, Lance.
That's right.
That's what all you have to say. Sick them.
And well, Christopher wants on that too.
Yes. Yes. So Sandy, Carla, and team, I think Lance was amazing. Thank you, Lance. We appreciate you always so much.
you.
I think we probably should move on to other items.
So
Yeah,
I
if
see
you-
that
Hmm.
that it's Jolly next, and I know he was going to start with a poll. So instead of me pulling up the slides and taking them down again, can we just roll into that? If you were going to start with that.
Sure,
perfect.
of course, of course. Okay. So launching one poll question right now for the entire audience. And Erica, it is, what is your level of instructional design? Are you a beginner? Do you have intermediate experience, or are you advanced? And any participant or attendee can answer these just by selecting which level is appropriate for you. And I love this feature, Lance. The poll feature, I'm sure you use it all the time, especially in K through 12. I can see what's happening. I can see how people are selecting their answers, and it's quick and easy. So just for the sake of time, let me stop the poll because we have 45 responses as of right now. So, wow, boy, Jolly, is this going to be interesting for you? Okay, so here is the results, and that is pretty even all the way down. Beginner, intermediate, and advanced, Jolly. And I'll go ahead and stop the share at that point and turn everything back over to Jolly,
Very
Holden, and
interesting.
Erica as well.
Fluid curve there. Okay, I think surprise me with the next slide, Sandy. Or
I got
Erica.
you.
Oh,
Yep,
that's
I
okay.
gotcha.
We can mix and match.
I'm surprised that what 3/4 are instructional designers, the attendees. All right, we can move past this one. A couple things, we'll stay on this one for just a moment. You're probably asking yourself, with all the instructor design models out there, why did we choose ADDIE? Well, several reasons. One, the data sets for ADDIE is probably more comprehensive than any other instructor design model out there when you look at the data centers. It's been around for over 50 years, almost 50 years. First exposed to ADDIE in Air Force manual, I think it's 50-2, is 1975, where they identified 5 phases of the instructional systems design model, which later became known as the ADDIE. And so it's widely used within the military. In fact, I was first introduced to the ADDIE model attending Air University's academic instructor school. They actually used ADDIE as part of instructional design. And Robert Gagne, I think in the mid-60s, came out with the 5-step instructional design. But I know the Air Force had the manual come out in 1975. I think the Army was closely behind. Of course, from the Army's perspective, they'll probably say they were ahead of the Air Force. But be that as it may, that's one reason why I chose the ADDIE model. Now we know that there's several different ADDIE ID models out there: Dick and Carey, SAM, CQI, HPT. But we're just going to focus on the ADDIE predominantly because I know the data sets out there, and it's probably the most commonly used structural systems design model out there. I've been teaching graduate courses in instructional design for the past 20 years, leading to a master's degree in instructional design and technology. And we use the ADDIE, but we also go over other ID models. But for the sake of this, we're going to use the ADDIE. Yes, it's, I know when I was in active duty in the Air Force, all the services de facto, de jure, had to use the ADDIE model. And it's probably still being used today. And there's nothing wrong with the ADDIE model. All the other ID models or ISD models out there incorporate these 5 stages among themselves. So that said, let's see what the next slide is, Erica. Move forward one slide real quick. We'll go back to this one. Okay, I use Google Bard, and what I put into Google Bard is, what is the role of AI in the ADDIE ID model? Now, in that prompt, my first prompt statement was act as instructional designer. That's very important, because what that does is that it delimits the database out there that it is accessing when you put that in there. Act as instructional designer. And then what is the role of AI in the ADDIE model? In return, not surprisingly, the 5 phases of the ADDIE model with a brief description on each one. That's later on in the deck. Let's go back one slide to the other prompts. Now, what I did was, the first response was analysis phase. So I created a second prompt, as you see there. And most of these are based on, I've taught over 300 courses in instructional design and technology, and these are the most common questions that come up from my students. The things that they have the hardest time to grasp and actually produce something. For those keen-eyed instructional designers out there, you're probably looking at this and they go, well, wait a minute, you're using measurable performance verbs based on Bloom's taxonomy. Well, yes, I am, occupational hazard. But I found out short sentences that are very specific, you're going to get more refined answers. And so that's an example of how I finally got to the question that I wanted. You could probably get to specific questions. What you're really going to find, there's an old saying, you don't know what you don't know, and back to the old parrot analogy that it's stupid in, stupid out, that the question has to be specific. And so I designed it, I found out that using some of those verbs, behavioral verbs like design, describe, list, actually in describing creates more content than just design. For whatever reason, I found that very, very interesting. And then as you add on more sentences, precise sentences, you're going to get more precise answers. And so, you know, on my first prompt up the analysis phase, what's the difference between a real and perceived need? And of course, I got the answer that was expected. And then I tried to get more specific in how to bridge that knowledge gap through a training intervention solution. How can we use that knowledge gap? Well, they didn't know really what a knowledge gap was. And so I had to go back and ask AI, what is a knowledge gap? And then based on that, I can start refining them. In the analysis phase, you know, you've got learning intervention solutions. You have to look at instructional media selection, target audience. Those are things that as an instructional designer that your experience is going to use when creating your prompts for AI. Now, again, I have to emphasize AI is a tool in the instructional design tool chest. We have many other tools in there. It's how well you use the tool really makes the difference. And that's where experience comes in and asking the right questions. In my tool chest, when my wife grabs the hammer, says she's going to hang some pictures, I know that sheetrock repair is in my immediate future. And so don't look at AI as answering all your questions. I found out that it had some inconsistencies. I noticed that quickly. A beginner may not notice some of the inconsistencies, but I did. I just asked another prompt. I was surprised that in that last phase, or the last prompt analysis phase, instructional medium did not know what instructional media was. I had to add in instructional media tools for AI to recognize what I was looking for. Like, should I use video? Should I use online? Should I use these different types of tools in that tool chest? Now, in the design phase there, again, in the prompt, I put in design phase in the period. So it's AI is just looking for that design phase. And then a lot of designers spend time developing learning objectives. And so I put in there, okay, design learning objectives using Mager's ABCD format. Very specific, and it returned a very specific answer. Defined each one, added to that, and gave some examples, even though I didn't even ask for an example. Now, the algorithm is built into that. Maybe the programmers decided to add an algorithm and it's prior examples as well. And then the next prompt was creating learning objectives using the ABCD format. And of course it did. and providing examples there as well. What I did was to create a very specific learning objective. I had to put in the ABCD components, and then AI organized that into a cohesive learning objective. Same thing on structural strategies. What is in the structural strategies? Of course, I said describe that. It described it. Again, provided some examples. I took the next step and listed structural strategies. And then it actually revealed many more instructional strategies that I knew existed, but AI didn't know or didn't access it until I asked that specific question. And then one of my favorite ones out there, I had to ask this one, the last one on the design phase. Are learning styles valid instructional activities? I was surprised by the answer that I got. AI actually made a judgment, and it's not supposed to make a judgment. It did, it probably didn't realize it was. It didn't answer the question of whether valid or not. The answer was, based on the research, learning styles should not be considered yada, yada, yada. But they preface that with based on the research. So AI somehow found the research and said, based on the research, that you should be very cautious in using learning styles. And then it described why. Thought it was a very comprehensive answer to a pretty, specific question. Mm-hmm. I'm going to hit my chat here real quick and just see real quick if I'm missing anything.
Yeah, there's a good question, Jolly, from Jay Allen.
Oh, shout out to Jay, a past president of the FGDLA. Jay, yes, I like your question about storyboarding, branching, other things. I didn't ask those questions, but certainly you could put that in. What I did not do is string together several questions. And when I did, like instead of all those different prompts, I had 3 or 4 questions within them. What it returned was a lot of information that didn't have any structure to it. It was like they were all over the map, not answering them at the same time. So we're talking about the learning styles there. Let's see, Jay's mentioning the ADDIE process. Storyboarding, again, you probably built a prompt on storyboarding. I would probably describe storyboarding and then from there go into more specific prompts. But there's a lot that in the instructional design process, especially the design phase, I didn't want to take the time on. One thing, though, I want to mention is that instructional designers spend a lot of time creating strategies, creating content, especially in the evaluation phase. What I'm amazed at is how quick you can get a response, a very specific response. And what it's doing is it's saving a lot of time. Now, in the evaluation phase, I'm going to skip the implementation phase here because time permitting. In the evaluation phase, I was asked the prompt about creating criterion reference assessment tests. That is a specific type of test. If I just put in design a test, design assessment, the answer was too generic and really unusable. So a criterion reference assessment test is a specific type of assessment test. It came back with the right answer. And then I added in the ABCD format, audience, behavior, condition, degree at Robert Mager's format for structure, sound, objectives. And it came back with a description of that format and some very generic assessment question. So I follow that up with, the next one is create 5 criterion reference assessment test questions, which was too generic. It did, but it wasn't applicable to what I wanted. So what I did was, on the prompt, I added, based on the learning objective, given the American Red Cross Manual and CPR, create 5 criterion assessment test questions using ABCD format. And that's exactly what it did. And I was very, very impressed by that. They were right on. I couldn't have designed it any faster, and it would have saved a lot of work, especially when you're building a test bank that maybe have 100 test questions in there. So I was very surprised and very pleased at the AI response. The real question is asking that right question, developing, designing the right prompt to get the answers. Okay, let's go to the next slide then.
Yeah, Jolly, can I ask a question that, you know, all these questions seem to spark that would relate? I know that, you know, it's like knowing how, because we're talking about the ADDIE model and there's a lot that goes into it, but maybe would there be the consideration that AI cannot cover successfully, responsibly certain components, and that maybe there's the need to really understand what it's beneficial for and where, you know, you may even need to draw a line and just not use it because it's not going to give you what you want. Could it be that that exists also for some of those applications? I'm just curious.
It could. I found out the more specific the prompts are,
Right.
the more accurate it is. And that's why in the criterion reference assessment, and we all know creating test questions take a lot of time. It's a lot of work.
Right.
And by listing the learning objectives that you have in a specific format, it did exactly what I wanted. And I looked at those 5 test questions, and somebody named Jerome said you can have 4 versions of those 5 questions for your item bank. Absolutely. It created more than the 5. It created other ones, but they were exactly the questions I were looking for. So again, when you go back to analysis phase, and a lot of times in analysis phase, you never have a training intervention solution. You find something else out there, and that's the difference between the real need and the perceived need. And the ISD process stops at analysis phase. The more specific you are in the input, the more information you're going to get back.
Okay. Thank you.
Now these are the analysis phase here. That is the prompt you see up there. And again, I said act as instructional designer. And these are the responses that I got from the analysis phase. Identical. This is cut and paste. Just a brief overview of the analysis phase. And there's so much information written on the ADDIE out there, you can get lost. What's the right information? This is pretty generic, and there's a lot more that could be in here, but I was satisfied with this response for somebody that's just getting in the ISD profession. Next slide. Same applies to the design phase here. These are the exact responses, very generic, but all I was asking for was the design phase. You can get much more specific in each one of those when you're looking at cognitive learning strategies and structural strategies. I had one prompt for describe cognitive learning strategies, and it defined it and provided examples. So to me, that's more than just going out and grabbing something. AI is actually doing the work for you in a short amount of time. Next. Again, the point is here that in the prompts, I put in development phase period plus that sense, and this is exactly what Google Bard replied to. You can become more specific. Point is, the more specific you are, the more information you provided, the better answer you're going to get. And then finally, we just skip through implement. I don't want to take up too much time here. And then finally, that evaluation phase. Very, very impressed by this. This is where I see saving a lot of time developing test questions. Again, you have to input into AI that specific learning objective, because in all instructional design models, you create your assessment questions after you create your learning objectives, not after you create the content. And so that way, personally, I use about 5 assessment questions per learning objectives gives me a pretty high level of confidence that those 5 questions actually measure the learning objectives. I didn't have anything on the implementation. Well, okay, go back up. What was that? Pretty straightforward here. When you're looking at developing content, that's going to be a time consumer. I didn't go into detail in developing content, although you could. But to develop the right content based on the learning objective in the knowledge gap, you'd have to put that into one prompt. And I think you'd probably be surprised at the content it comes from. And then just using a different behavioral verb in there, you get different responses. For example, going from define to describe to list, AI returns different answers. And most of it's usable, but again, the more specific you are, the more accurate the answer is going to be. And then back to the evaluation phase. And again, I think that should be the last slide. I don't think there's another one. Oh, these came up also from AI. I did not ask for this; it just did it. AI-powered task analysis tool, powered learning objective generators. What I did on that one, I found that to be very interesting. I actually asked AI identify a powered learning objective generator, and it gave me a website to go to, and I went to that website, and they had a learning objective generator that didn't work. So, but again, I don't know where AI came up with these additional tools, but it did for whatever reason. Any other questions we may have here? We're good to go? And I'm sure you can use Jenny's version of gamification and gaming. I'm sure AI has plenty of thoughts about that.
And I think that's where Jenny's going.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, so Jenny, you want to just jump in and
Sure. Sorry.
you don't need introduction. You've already been introduced.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sandy and Jolly, for their introductions. So my name is Dr. Jennifer Verricchio. I go by Jenny. We're going to just, on this last presentation piece here, talk about the next level instructional design and leveraging AI for both gamification and graphics. So diving more into that content development piece. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to take a high-level flyover of a few areas where artificial intelligence can be helpful in your instructional design efforts. But my real goal is to get you out there and trying different tools with the strategic perspective in mind, specifically within the areas of gamification and graphic design. Next slide, please. So as you've probably already experienced, distance learning is absolutely full of technologies and tools that are at our disposal right now, things that can detect plagiarism, transcript technology, mind mapping tools for ideation, assessment scoring, rapid design platforms. I could continue for a really long time. There's a lot out there. And these tools are real time savers that help immensely with allowing instructional designers with the ability to provide learning events that are available relatively quickly in asynchronous and synchronous virtual environments. Next slide, please. But there will probably come a time when all of these tools can be navigated automatically with artificial intelligence. But this won't replace instructional designers. However, it will impact how we think about our instructional design strategies. Impactful learning events, as you've been hearing through this workshop today, impactful learning events are often catered and personalized to a specific audience, and that authenticity can really be lacking in artificial intelligence without a strategic designer behind it. So we're still a ways off on all of this becoming the real norm, but we're close enough to start exploring and really educating ourselves on what's out there and what are the different ways that we can leverage artificial intelligence for instructional design. So I'm going to go briefly walk through a couple of different areas you can begin to experiment with artificial intelligence and generative AI. in your instructional design strategies. But before we dive in, I really want to highlight what I mean by artificial intelligence versus generative AI. So artificial intelligence, or AI, is the term used for creating computer systems that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence or that cognition, such as decision-making or problem-solving. So on the slide here, you can see there's a robot deciding what's the next chess move to make in this game. Generative AI is a subset of artificial intelligence that focuses on creating models that generate new content. This new content could be text, images, music, anything using neural networks or deep learning. And in other words, you can think of generative AI as that specialized area within artificial intelligence that's focused on creating or generating creative content. Okay, so now we're going to look at gamification AI and graphic design opportunities using generative AI. So let's start with gamification. Now, when I say gamification, I mean the application of game mechanics to a non-game learning event. So this isn't to be confused with game-based learning, which is using a game to drive the learning event. So having an entire game be your entire learning event, like if I were to use Monopoly as an economics lesson or something like that, that would be more of a game-based learning versus using game mechanics in a non-game event, learning event. So on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about game mechanics. These are game elements that are working within the system of a game. So as you can see on the slide here, we have some examples of some wooden board pieces. And by themselves, these are just game elements that are just little pieces of wood. But when placed on a board game, they become part of that system of play. They become mechanics within that system. In a digital world, you'll see a lot of gamification elements being used, such as badges, leaderboards, levels, points. All of those can be tied into a system of play. So for example, if I have a badge, the badge is a game element on its own, but if I have to do an activity within the learning event, like build a campfire in the woods to earn my campfire badge, and it may be a step in a longer process to become the master camper, this is part of a larger systematic process. So it's that mechanic built into the gamified system. Next slide, please. Gamification has already been recognized as a really powerful tactic to encourage learners to encourage learner engagement and motivation. And AI can take that to another level when implemented in gamification. And that is a term used in this is called gamification AI. It's that integration of artificial intelligence technologies with gamification strategies. So gamification AI provides multiple advantages when compared to traditional gamification. So here's some examples. We have data-driven insights. Gamification AI can be used to gather a lot of data around user interactions. And this data can highlight trends and findings around user preferences and behaviors. And this can be helpful when looking to refine your gamification strategies. It also uses predictive analytics, real-time adaptability, and personalization. So AI can leverage predictive analytics to forecast user behavior and anticipate needs. And this allows for gamification systems to offer new challenges, rewards, and content that will resonate with your learners in a proactive way and in a personalized way. Continuous improvement. AI can iterate and improve gamification elements by leveraging the learnings collected from learner interactions and feedback, so going back to that data-driven insights. And then lastly, an enhanced user experience. This learning environment can be more immersive for the learner using chatbots, virtual assistants, or dynamic challenges that can respond to user inputs, which makes the learning experience feel a bit more lifelike. I have a business partner that oversees a call center, and recently they used an AI program that is essentially a chatbot, but it's a voice-activated chatbot, and it can simulate a call. So the phone for a new call center representative will actually ring, they'll pick it up, and it's a robot that sounds exactly like a person. And it's been programmed to work through different call flows and help with their learning experience. So they're able to go from onboarding to taking actual customer calls in a much smoother way. And it doesn't impact the customer experience. And then also it's been shown, it's starting to show to be less stressful for these onboarding call center agents that are coming from, you know, getting hired and training, and then all of a sudden having to take these calls and feeling kind of pressured. So it's helping to add that simulation through that really immersive learning experience using gamified AI. All right, next slide, please. So, as you've probably heard this entire session, none of this happens on its own. And just like most things with instructional design, your strategic approach is really, really important for the success of the implementation. So speaking of strategy, on the next slide here, thanks, Erica, let's talk about what a strategic implementation would look like for gamification AI. And now it may be different for you depending on your experience level with AI and coding and all of that back-end stuff, but we're going to look at a high-level implementation strategy that anyone can use, even if you don't know how to code. So I just want to show where that gamification piece really comes in and the artificial intelligence. So starting with our phase one, the preparation phase, you're going to start really in the traditional way, defining what that learning goal is of the training and what are those objectives that need to be met in order to ensure that that goal has been reached by the end of the training event. Also, at this point, you want to measure how are you going to evaluate and measure that completion of the goal? What are those metrics going to look like? Next is to analyze your audience. What are their characteristics, their preferences, their learning environments, motivations? Whatever information you can get on them is great. All of these questions are really important for you to aim to answer when preparing any type of gamified or game-based learning. And then next, you're going to choose your gamification platform. There are lots of platforms out there that do not require a coding background, and we'll talk about a couple of those in a bit. And then on those platforms, you can explore pre-built templates. A lot of these platforms have these pre-built templates that you can leverage to customize to your specific needs, and these can be real time savers. On to the next slide, phase two, design and iterate. So next, you're going to design your content, your gamified elements. So the content is those non-game elements of the course. Then creating those elements that you've selected to meet those objectives to ultimately reach that goal in your gamified learning. And a tip here, when working with a gamified system, to figure out what those mechanics will be. Am I going to use badges? Do I want to use points? Do I want to use levels? Go back to your audience analysis and figure out, when I put this element in, what does that mean for the learner? What's that learner experience going to really look like? Everything that you use should have a purpose. Anything that you don't, that doesn't have a purpose, just get rid of it. It's going to be more of a distraction than an engagement tool. Next, you're going to set rules and guidelines to ensure that your learners will understand the parameters of the gamified experience. So some games have rules and parameters. How do I get at the top of that leaderboard? Those kinds of things. And then establish feedback and progress trackers. Set up a feedback and progress tracking system for learners so they can easily see where they are in the course, what their performance looks like, and any possible opportunities for improvement. And then set up rewards and recognition, just to recognize them for any milestones met or completing the program. And then test and iterate your work. Pilot your learning with your development team or a small group of learners is really ideal. And then gather feedback, make adjustments as needed. And then that takes us to phase three, which is launching. So you'll prepare support documentation if you're going onto a new platform and they'll need some guidance as far as navigation goes. Then promote and launch your learning, and then evaluate and enhance. Use analytics and reporting features that are available to track the planned reporting elements. And then use this data collected to assess the effectiveness of your gamification strategy. All right, so going on to the next slide here. If you're wondering, where can I get started? How can I start exploring this today? These are some gamification examples that you can check out today. There are a ton of learning management system or LMS platforms that you can look at. So here's one example called Brainier. And Brainier is an LMS with a learning management system with gamification features and AI-driven recommendations. It offers personalized learning paths, badges, and certificates. Another one you might be familiar with is Duolingo, a language learning app that uses gamification and AI to personalize lessons, track progress, and adapt to difficulty levels based on user performance. This is something you can just see that's already pre-built and you can play with it. Another one is Kahoot, which leverages, this is a quiz tool that leverages AI to create interactive quizzes and educational games that promote active learning and engagement in classrooms and virtually. I would say it also works really well there. And then another pre-built example you can jump into and play with is MyFitnessPal, which is using AI-driven gamification to track users' diet, exercise habits, while also offering rewards and achievements for meeting specific milestones. And then some additional examples I didn't have a chance to put on the board, but they're very specific to course development, is M-Level, that's M as in Mary, Level. It's a micro-learning and gamification platform that uses AI to personalize content and assessments. It offers analytics to track learner engagement and progress, and the platform includes leaderboards and competition features. So if you have a more competitive learner group, this could be something you could look into. That was M-Level, M as in Mary. Next is EduFlow, which is EduFlow. It's an online learning platform that allows instructors to create courses with gamified elements and uses AI to automate assessments and provide feedback to students. And then this platform also supports collaborative learning and peer review. And a third one, last one, is Rallyware, Rallyware. It's an AI-driven platform that supports engagement from employees and in a training environment. And it uses AI to deliver personalized learning experiences and track employee progress. And this includes gamification features like points, challenges, and competitions. So again, if you have that more competitive learner group, this might be a good thing to look into. All right, so that does it for AI, gamification AI. Let's look at graphics and generative AI. So I wanted to include this because instructional design can be very resource intensive and demanding of creative imaging in short periods of time. So everyone's asking for lots of new images, make it new, make it creative, and that can be kind of a lot of pressure at times. So artificial intelligence has actually been impacting the digital marketing industry, which is another resource intensive area. And there are lots of tools available now that can help with rapid development. And these tools can be leveraged by instructional designers for their digital design needs. So let's talk a little bit about what it can do. Oh, one more slide. Sorry about that. Thank you. So AI in this space, it can generate multiple designs automatically. Remember, generative AI is creating new content, generating new creative content. So you can get multiple designs automatically. You can get personalized designs for your specific audience, which can be great if you're doing an image of a specific scenario or something like that. It can help with ideation and brainstorming, and it can help you create rapid prototypes of different design ideas without hurting a budget either, or the time budget. All right, next slide. So we're going to talk about a few things that you can go out there and explore today, starting with Artbreeder. This platform allows users to create and explore AI-generated artwork by blending different images. It can use AI to generate new images by interpolating between existing ones. And then the next one is GAN Paint Studio. This is an AI tool that lets users interactively modify and edit images by adding or removing objects, changing colors, enhancing details, using, again, as we learned about earlier, a generative adversarial network. So you can see that in action. Go play with it today if you like. And then another one is Dolly, which Sandy had mentioned earlier and showed us some examples of something she created, those galactic spacey examples that came out great. This was developed by OpenAI and is an AI model that generates images from textual descriptions, and users can describe the concept or an idea in words, and Dolly creates corresponding images. And I recommend just saying something crazy and seeing how quick it is. I did one the other day that was, show me a cat next to a pool on the moon, and it had 4 different variations. So you can really explore that and personalize your learning that way and your learning design. And then the last one is Paints Chainer, which is an AI-based automatic coloring tool that can colorize line art or black and white drawings with a single click. It's really popular among illustrators and artists, and it can be also really helpful for instructional designers, especially if you have very strict brand standards in your organization. You can make sure that, you know, everything's kind of compliant, stick to the right blue, the right green, whatever it is, to make sure that you're maintaining that organizational alignment. So just curious, using your reactions button below, has anyone had a chance to use any of these yet? Thumbs up maybe, or a little, oh, wait, there's some, oh, good. We got some explorers out there. That's wonderful. Awesome. Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing.
Jenny, I saw someone comment too about using Adobe Express, and earlier another person talked about using Adobe Firefly. I know those a couple of Adobe products that also use AI in a sense to help with graphics.
Yeah, Adobe is great. It's always a good one to go explore and see what they have. And yeah, they have been doing some AI integration as well. So yeah, please go explore. This list that I can't tell you how long it was. I had to pick and choose what to pull in today. There's a ton out there. And so yeah, the whole point, like I said at the beginning, go out there, go explore. And that takes us actually to our next slide. Perfect transition. So we talked about how instructional designer can leverage AI specifically for gamification AI and digital design using generative AI. And we talked about some examples, but again, I encourage you just to get out there, keep exploring. The best way to learn this stuff is just trying it out, getting familiar with it, and use these different tools to find out what works best for you and your organization. So with that, I'll get back to Sandy.
Thanks, Jenny. So we're going to wrap this up with current policies. I know I talked about it in the beginning, and I wanted to just give you a framework for the types of topics that are now being addressed. I know we have a memorandum for record. I will share some of that with you. And basically, if you look at them, the common theme that's running through that is not so much you can't do this, you can't do that. Some of that is included, but more how can you use it? And the key word is responsibly. So let's move on. I want to show you some of the information I got. And these are just some of the themes that are coming up. AI integration in curriculum. How do we teach students? There we go about, do we teach them those skills? And I'm a proponent of, if you give the students the skills, the learning will come after that, because they will know how to adapt. That they know how they function, but now they at least know how to get, the answers they need. Ethical and responsible AI education, teacher training. That's really a big component, because if the students are, and I would say most of them are very proactive in using it, but in addition to that, the teachers need to know how to guide them. It's very important, especially as you're writing curriculum and you want them to focus. You know how sometimes I will see this in presentations, keywords. Well, it's the same thing. You could do key prompts, key queries, just understanding how they go about getting that information. Data privacy and security, especially for, well, deeper levels, I would say for government, is important. AI and assessment. What are parameters? What is, again, responsible use? Next slide, please, Erica. There's a bunch of them. Teacher support, administrative tasks, grading student performance, equity and inclusion also is very, very important. Even, like a closed captioning for ASL. There is a lot of things that we still need to consider. Regulation and standardization. And again, and I think this goes back to equity and inclusion, that there's quality, fairness, honesty in the use of AI technologies. So it's almost like an AI code of conduct, for lack of a better concept, although I like that. I think maybe we should write one. So these are sample excerpts from the memorandum for record, and you can see this came through our provost. Generative AI tools such as Google Bard, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Microsoft Bing Chat. And again, I like that we identified the ones specifically. And it doesn't mean that other ones aren't okay to use, but these are the ones that have had the most ubiquitous usage. They're fast becoming part of the educational landscape. As a leader in foreign language education, DLI aims to embrace new technologies, but must always do so responsibly. And I think I wanted to add that line about as a leader in foreign language education, because it's in the context of our mission here. And you all have separate missions at your institutions, whether it's government, academia, or corporate. And the next one, next slide, is like any other tool, it has important capabilities, but also notable limitations. And here we go with the hallucination. And and for us, actually, for language learning, I call it successive prompts, where I'll generate vocabulary, and then I'll generate tables, which I learned do not say create, but say build, because when I say create, it says, I am not programmed to create. Well, it's getting better, but I had to use build. And I'm like, really? So build a table with collocations, and for translation interpretation, I want Russian translations, because now I have information that I can use to validate language, see if our students know, have them discuss among themselves, is this accurate? And then actually go to our subject matter expert teachers. And then I also have them take the chatbot take the vocabulary and create a paragraph in Russian. And now I can have my students interpret, or the Russian teachers would have to need them to do that. I'm kind of, do I understand what you're interpreting to me as the end user? And then they validate the Russian too. They may look at it and say, hey, there's something wrong here. So you have many uses, but again, it's generating the material. It's not instructing my students. I am in charge of taking that material and using it to meet my purposes. So this is what this is talking about. And if there are hallucinatory red flags, then hopefully they'll catch it. And of course, you have the final word from the instructors. So, just some other things there. You see mirror inaccuracies, biases in the public domain. Accordingly, and as with previous educational technologies, discussions about Gen AI are shifting to a focus on its role as an assistive tool for both students and faculty. And I think that's in line with what Carla was talking about at the beginning. So it's not the end all of information. We have to look at what it's generating and validate it, and see, can we use it? Is it hallucinating too much? There's just a lot to consider. So next slide, please. So as you know, this is only part one of the webinar series, and we invite you to share. I know some of you do not have policies in place or memorandums for record, but it would be really helpful for us for the next webinar to kind of put some of that together, see where. Oh, I'm sorry. That was my phone, and it's turned off, and it just said on it. Siri is listening to me. Sorry. Let us know. Let us know what your generative AI policy includes, and we will share the results in part 2.
I'm having trouble with the connection. Please try again later.
I'm sorry. That's Siri. I turned my phone off on us. Anyways, if you could email your policies or anything you might, have to share with us to Carla. She has graciously said it's okay. So she doesn't care if she gets a million emails, or maybe she does, but we opened up Pandora's box, and it's now in Carla's hands to her email. And then we will, we'll get to look at it and hopefully have some more insights for you for part 2. Okay, and next slide, I think questions and comments, and I turn it over to you, Carla, I guess, and Russ to wrap up.
Well, we're getting toward the end. While you've got some questions, go ahead and put them in the chat room, not the Q&A, but use the chat, and we'll see if we can't get to those. If we can't get to all of them today, we'll answer them next time around in November. November 15th, make sure you put that on your calendar. But another thing that you might want to do, we covered an awful lot of material today, and we're still putting together part 2. So let us know what you would like, what sorts of things would be the most useful to you. We have a wide range of people who have registered for the workshops, and we want to make sure that we're meeting most of what you want and need. Obviously, we're in a very fluid situation with everything that's going on with AI and IA, and we can't cover everything, but what we wanted to focus on here was definitely training and education, instructional design, production, and other types of things that are really relevant to what all of us do for a living, and to help us work through the things that we need to do for the federal government, for our colleges and universities. And while I've got a minute here, I did want to thank FGDLA's president Erica Jacobs, who has been so willing today to be our technical director and did it flawlessly. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Erica. Erica is with the Marine Corps and the Marine Corps University and let me see if I can say it correctly because I never quite get it right, Erica. It's the College of Distance Learning and Training. And
Distance education and training, close.
Close, huh? No cigar yet? Okay. I'll send it back out to AI and see if I can get it right. So the other person I really want to thank is Sandy Wagner, who's putting together this entire event and our producer and did a marvelous job of putting everything together. So thank you so very much, Sandy. It's been a wonderful thing to work with you.
Yeah. Well, Carla, and Carla needs the same applause because we've been on the phone, just getting everything together. So I would share that 50-50 with Carla. So thank you.
And I also want to thank our other people. So besides Sandy and Erica, Russ is here every month with me and just the best companion. And he's great. He's always picking up things and doing things. But to be able to hear him present, he has such a fabulous amount of knowledge. So thank you so much, Russ. We appreciate you.
Likewise.
And Dr. Jolly Holden, who has been here since the inception of FGDLA. Jolly, thank you. He is such an expert on ADDIE. And it was just such a pleasure to hear you talk through how you could take something like ADDIE and turn it into something that is so usable with AI and help people continue to use ADDIE. It's such an important, it's a foundational piece of work for everything that we do for instructional design. Obviously, there are many other things that are there, but largely they are based on ADDIE and they've derived from that. And then I want to thank Jenny Vericchio for being here today and just doing such a masterful job on gamification and the graphics. There was so much there. So when Jenny started putting this together, she has such a wealth of information and all of her work in gamification that we've asked her if she would put together a full webinar, and it will probably be sometime in early spring, and it will be on gamification and AI and as things change and morph into brand new things, we'll be doing even more things with gamification. So thank you all so very much. And Russ, I know Lance had to leave, but we wanted to thank him and for being here. And also we wanted to thank Moodle and Zoom for being our sponsors. There's a lot of organizations that have sponsors, but we've got two of the best and the biggest, and that gives you some idea of how well thought of FGDLA is. We appreciate all of you being here with us today. It's been wonderful. So are there any quick questions that we can answer that are streaming in through the thing? I see a bunch of thank yous, so thank you all for the thank yous. It's so great to have.
I see thank you, and I saw a question about what the next session is going to be on, which is why I went to this slide, Carla.
We don't know yet. That's the truth. Full transparency here. That's why we'd like to hear some things from you. Yeah. We're going to, we'll do some things on policy. We'll do some more things on teaching and learning theory. We'll delve into it. But, AI is changing day by day by day by day. And, putting a stake in the ground right this minute and saying we're definitely going to do this next week or next month is a bit presumptuous, I think, on our part. So
yeah, we want to stay relevant. For sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know we did discuss, I think it's okay to share that, because I have some concrete examples to share that I'll put into beyond a language learning perspective and, just the way we've crafted some of those prompts and what it's generated. I mean, I have some right now that I have put into I do a Canvas course for, advanced ESL, just for our translation interpretation mission. And I'm using AI now to develop some of those objectives and, with that instructional design process. So I should let Jolly evaluate it for me. I think I have a project for you, Jolly. But yeah, it's open.
So people are saying in the chat, maybe we could do some things about exhibits of some of the things that we've been talking about, some of the programs that we brought up. So we can do that and put other things together. So Jenny, you're on for that if you can, but I think you said you were going to be gone for that next one, right? So you're probably
I'll be
okay, but
facilitating somewhere else, but in the early spring, I'm taking notes and getting ideas here. So thanks, everyone.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got 1 minute left, so let me just close again and thank you all for being with us today, for such good participation. And don't forget to put the November 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern into your calendar. We will try to send out a reminder, but just in case, you know, we're just a bunch of volunteers here, you know how that goes. So put it in your calendar and we will see you then on November 15th. Thanks you so much for being with us today. Good night.